Despite being longtime buddies, Robert Whittaker thinks there's always an elephant in the room when he chills with featherweight GOAT and champion Alexander Volkanovski. And we can't really blame Robert for feeling that way, to be honest. Like, how would you feel if your friend trains with your arch nemesis? Keep watching this video as we tell you the awkward truth between Whittaker's and Volka's friendship. First up, who's Robert talking about? Saying there's bad blood between Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya would be a huge understatement. The two middleweights pretty much hate each other, and while there's a lot of respect, the rivalry will always be there. The first time they met in the cage at UFC 243, Adesanya put on a beating and knocked the Australian out via some deadly punches in the second round of the fight to become the new middleweight champion of the promotion. Fast forward to UFC 271, Izzy and the Reaper are inside the octagon again. Robert is eager to win back the title and finally end the reign of the Nigerian champion. But the last stylebender obviously had some other plans and put on a display of technical brilliance as he defended his title against the same man he won it from. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how one of the fiercest rivalries in the middleweight division was born. But you're probably wondering, what does all this have to do with there being an elephant in the room between Volka and Whittaker? Well, it just happens to be that Izzy and Volka are quite the buddies themselves. The two champions always train together at Auckland's famed City Kickboxing. And if you ask us, it makes complete sense. Like, Whittaker isn't saying he hates Alex for training with him or something. All he's saying is that there's some awkwardness. You also have to consider how UFC dynamics work. Loyalty is huge in the fight game. Even if you train with your buddy's rival, there's a certain level of loyalty that can't be crossed. And no, Whittaker doesn't think Alex has crossed the line or something. We just think the two have never sat down and actually talked about it. After all, the featherweight champion has his own career he needs to look after, right? He isn't the champion because he follows the rules or something. He's the champion because he trains with champions. So Whittaker can feel awkward about it or think there's an elephant in the room, but he can never blame Alex for doing what's best for his career. And if you really think about it, we think Whittaker is sort of overreacting here. Maybe it's because he's been unable to defend or win back the middleweight title from Izzy, but that isn't reason enough for going on air and talking about how the line is drawn. The former middleweight champion also said how they'll actually be friends once they're done fighting. Frankly speaking, we don't even think Volka thinks it's a big deal or something. Every time we've seen the two together, you can see how much he respects him. Now for being quite the buddies. Even if your friend is going into a fight as a clear loser, you have to back him up. Those are just the rules of the game. And you'd expect someone like Robert to have Volka's back, considering how annoyed he is with his training setup. But to our surprise, Whittaker didn't even back the champion in the trilogy fight against Max Holloway. So much for being buddies. And even though he had his reasons for choosing Max, we still think what he said was an emotional response to everything going on. And it made things 10 times more awkward. It's like Kamaru taking on Conor and Izzy sides with the Notorious. That's backstabbing right there, and we think Whittaker did exactly that to his fellow Australian. The former middleweight champion of the world picked Max to come out victorious in the trilogy fight, claiming he's improved each time the two featherweights fought each other. The Reaper also talked about how the second fight could have gone either way, and that the decision was based on razor-thin margins. Honestly speaking, we don't really expect that sort of reasoning from someone who understands the fight game much better than us. It's like saying since Robert put on a better show in his second fight against Izzy, he'll win the third fight if it ever happens. Is he forgetting the fact that Alex still won the first two fights? And if that wasn't enough, his prediction was proved wrong at UFC 276 when the undisputed featherweight champion of the world bloodied Holloway's face with some superior striking. Next up, time to get focused. We really think Whittaker needs to snap out of all of this drama because it really doesn't make any sense. Like, why is he losing sleep over Alex training with Adesanya? Sure, you could argue that he also feels betrayed in a way, but just think about all the stuff his buddy has done. He's been named the GOAT of the featherweight division. He's thinking of moving up and becoming the first active double champ of the promotion. And it's probably because he surrounds himself with a champion like Adesanya. A GOAT training with a GOAT. That sounds like trouble for the entire promotion. And while all this is happening, Whittaker is crying over how a line has been drawn since he trains with his rival. It's time to get Get focused, former champ. He really needs to find his rhythm again and focus on what's important. Minus Adesanya and the Reaper has already pretty much cleared the division of competition. So just a win or two will get him back in the driving seat for the trilogy fight against his arch nemesis. Keep up with this and you'll be nothing but a has-been who takes names and creates drama to stay relevant. Now it's time for some more on the UFC. Up next, apologies all the way from Hollywood. A lot of people criticized Izzy for being too relaxed during his championship defense against underdog Jared Cannonier. People claimed he was too careful and wasn't on the offense throughout the entire fight, and even Guardians of the Galaxy star actor Chris Pratt criticized him for fighting the way he did. Granted, Pratt did try to stay as humble as possible, saying he knows nothing about the fight game, but all he expected was Izzy to live up to his badass status. And Izzy didn't really overreact either. He just wrote a tweet stating Chris is just a fan while he's the man. It wasn't so much Izzy, but instead, fans just went berserk after Chris saying he's in no position to make comments on how the champion fought because he's never been inside the cage, which to be honest is a pretty fair point. But anyway, that alone was enough to bring out an apology from the Hollywood superstar. He apologized to Adesanya on Twitter, saying he doesn't feel good when someone criticizes his work without ever having taken a risk. So it's not right on his part to do the same. Now, for thinking too much. Looks like the two felonies have really gotten to Masvidal. All he's been doing is thinking of ways to get someone to fight him. His most recent target is Conor McGregor. He's been calling him out every chance he gets, and just recently, he's come up with an interesting but absurd offer. So Masvidal wants to gather a large sum of money and then fight for it against the Notorious. The only catch here being that the winner takes it all. Whoever loses the fight won't get a single dime. Don't know what you think, but we really don't see Masvidal in a position to be calling out fighters. He should be more worried about potentially spending time in jail rather than chasing money fights. Or maybe he needs the money since he'll have to fight some lawsuits in the upcoming months. Who knows? And even though Conor doesn't have the same liberty of choosing his fights, he's still levels above game bred in our opinion. Finally, the fight to do. Like we said, Conor is still levels above game bred, and that's why he's being called out by one of the greatest lightweights of all time, Charles Oliveira. He wants to face the Notorious in Brazil, his home turf. And if that doesn't remind you of the whole Jose episode, then we don't know what will. It's a fight that just gets us excited. It's like history repeating itself, only this time around Conor has a lot to prove. He's not going up against someone like Jose Aldo. Oh, and if the UFC can't give him that fight, then they better be prepared to offer a whole lot of money. Charles has put forward a condition that he'll only fight Islam if it's worth the same amount of cash the Brazil fight would have generated. And it isn't even like he's beating around the bush or something. He's put it out there in the open. He's told Dana that he's looking for the money. That's it from our side, folks. So what do you think? Is Robert overreacting here to Alex training with Adesanya? Do you think he's making it seem bigger than it is? Let us know in the comments below. Remember, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more exciting videos in the future. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you next time.